Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We'll be getting started here at the top of the hour in just a minute or so. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Hull & Company Professional Liability Instant Quotes powered by Appulate. I will be your presenter today, Vanessa Dulier-Camara, the Director of Customer Development here at Appulate, and I'm joined by Brian DeGraw, the Vice President of Hull & Company Horsham. Before I hand this off to Brian to get started, I do want to take you through some quick webinar logistics. So, due to the size of the webinar, all attendees will be muted, but please type in your questions as you have them in the GoToMeeting side panel. There's a little question section there, so as you have them, go ahead and type them in there, send them over, and then we'll get to those at the end. We'll have a live Q&A session. Definitely want to answer your questions, so do stick around till the end, and again, type in your questions as you have them in the GoToMeeting question section. In a few minutes, we'll get into a live demonstration, but first I'd like to hand this off to Brian for some more information on Hull. Brian?
Thanks so much, Vanessa. I really appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making time for us. I'm excited to talk about our program in partnership with Appulate, writing on behalf of Arch Insurance Company. This program is a professional errors and omissions product. The focus of this product is for small business owners. And the goal is really to put the power back in your hands to obtain professional quotes in a very streamlined way by answering just a handful of questions and being able to bind that quote as well. So it's a much simplified way to manage your small business, specifically for the professional E&O product. So I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit more about that, and as Vanessa mentioned, she'll be giving you a live demo of the system as well, which really should help you understand how to use the system and just how simple it is to work. So this product is designed for businesses with less than $3 million in annual revenue. What's interesting about it is we can write both for-profit entities as well as nonprofit risks. A lot of insurance companies stay away from nonprofit risks for errors and omissions coverage, but we have the ability to offer both sides of that business. You'll find that the premiums are very affordable. We really scoured the marketplace to find the best in brand coverage, along with really competitive premiums to pass along to you, and very flexible limit options as well, starting at $100,000, going up to $2 million in limits. And deductible options start at $0. So very flexible, very competitively priced, minimum premium starting at $500. Also a great feature is that it's a direct bill product, so you don't have to touch the account very much. You bind the risk, and then we submit a bill directly to the insured. What's great about this product is that we wanted to make sure that we could attract as broad a range of professional types of services. So there are literally hundreds and hundreds of types of risks that will qualify for this program. The following slide is just a small sampling of the eligible classes of business that qualify for this risk. So you can see that we've provided some coverage features here on a highlight sheet to talk about the product. This is a claims-made policy, and as you likely know, there's really no ISO standards around specialty lines products. So it's written on a duty to defend basis. We talked about the limit options. We can go up to a $2 million per claim and a $2 million aggregate with low deductibles starting at $0. There's a softened hammer clause, and that essentially what that does is provide your client, the insured, with the ability to choose when they want to settle a claim. And if they decide that they want to go against the advice of the carrier because they're worried about their reputation, they still have continued coverage at 75% of the continued costs if they decide not to settle the claim. Punitive damages is an important coverage feature as well. That's offered where it's insurable by law depending upon the state. There's an extension of coverage to spouses and domestic partners. They're considered insureds under the policy. This is written on a worldwide coverage basis. As you know, in today's global economy, business owners are doing business across the globe, and it's important to have worldwide coverage available to those risks. There's an added coverage feature that provides for bodily injury, property damage, and personal injury options. So it's sort of meant to dovetail into with a general liability policy for coverage arising out of their professional services. And this is important for some types of risks that are involved in things that can cause more of a bodily injury type of exposure. There's also sexual abuse and molestation defense cost coverage, data incidents response, so a cyber liability coverage extension is included on this platform as well. So it's really a best of breed product, broadly written, competitively priced, all backed by Arch Insurance Company, who's an A+ rated insurance carrier. From an eligibility standpoint, accounts with under $3 million in revenue fit, and as I mentioned, can be a for-profit or a not-for-profit company. Here's your class list again. You can kind of browse through that and see the types of accounts that fit for this. This is not all encompassing, but it does give you a pretty good sense of the variety of eligible risks that qualify for this platform. So a little bit more about the program. We talked about how it has a broad appetite. It's a very simple process to utilize, which Vanessa is going to show you. And the great part about it is you can quickly determine the eligibility of the risk in just a few minutes. Best of all, there's nothing else that you need to do, even if it doesn't qualify for our online platform, because essentially, as soon as the eligibility is determined, if it's not eligible, our team will be notified immediately. We can take the information and go out to the rest of our brokerage market and coordinate and correspond back with you about what other options may be available on this particular account. Included with the quote when you get it are all forms and endorsements, and so you don't have to do a lot of chasing down to get the information that you need in order to present it to the client. And as you answer the questions on the instant quote application, you'll see that an application is being completed. That information would then need to be signed off on by your insured if they want to go ahead and move forward with binding the coverage. But it also gives me a completed application to utilize in the event that the risk is not eligible online, so I can go out to the rest of the marketplace. The questionnaire was developed to become as easy and fast to use as possible, putting a lot of the coverage eligibility questions up front so that we can quickly determine if from the major categories if the account is going to qualify, so you don't spend a lot of time if it's not eligible. Additional coverage options can include an admitted policy form. While the standard form is excess and surplus lines, if having an admitted product is important, we can convert it to admitted. That's something I would do for you and send it to you. GL is also available on a host of eligible risks, so you could obtain both the E&O and GL through one simple process. We talked about some other coverage features, including sexual abuse, molestation, some cyber coverages, punitive damages, and some extensions of definition of insured to include spouses and domestic partners. The quote that is generated is not a premium indication. It's actually a bindable quote. So you would simply click on the request to bind option in the system if you want to move ahead with coverage. We'll receive that information electronically and immediately. We'll request to bind it in our system, and then we'll return back to you with a binder and an invoice for the direct bill. Something important to note, you do need to become appointed with Hull & Company in order to bind the account. You can certainly get quotes without being appointed with us, just to determine if you feel that this is a valuable program. But ultimately, you will need to become appointed with us in order to get coverage in force. And that's a simple process as well. You can both do it through the Appulate system, and you can also just shoot me your contact information, and I can get that process started as well.
Very good. Well, thank you for that, Brian. I promise you we're going to get to our live demo in just a minute, but while I have you, I wanted to just give you a quick update on Appulate, and I see those questions trickling in, so that's good. Keep them coming. Appulate's network continues to grow. We now have over 30,000 agencies in network nationwide and hundreds of markets within Appulate. Just last month, we broke an Appulate record with over 16,000 submissions received in 1 month through Appulate, making Appulate the place where agents, MGAs, and carriers do business digitally. And our commitment to you is to empower you by expanding your markets, automating your workflow, and saving you time and money. We're going to show that to you here in a live demo by going through a professional liability demonstration for an instant quote, of course, through Hull & Company Horsham. So let's do that by going to Appulate.com. So everybody that was invited to this webinar already has Appulate credentials. We'll talk a little bit more about that and setup at the end. So to get started, you could go ahead and click on Sign In. If you had any type of accord form, a general accord form that you wanted to bridge over using Uplink, you can certainly do that. But you could go ahead and get started in Appulate by clicking on the Add New Customer or Prospect button and going ahead and typing in the insured's information here that it's asking you for on this page. Go ahead and click Continue. And on this next page, we're going to go ahead and choose the insurance product or line, and this is, of course, for professional liability. And click Continue. On this next page, it takes you into our Q&A section. This is where you're going to select Hull & Company Horsham as your market. All right, so to the right of Hull & Company Horsham, we have a letter indication. This is going to help guide you through the submission process. So this will tell you what questions are missing and required that you'll have to complete down below in our SMART questionnaire before you're able to click on the Submit button. So right now it's orange. We want the Submit button to be green so that we can click on it. So all we have to do is down below answer the last of the missing and required questions. Now, up above, those are live links. So you can click on any of those questions, and it will take you directly to where the question must be answered below. And we also have this Mark All as No option at the top of the page, which will help you get through those yes-no sections more quickly or more efficiently. So I'm going to get through this and answer as many of these questions or all of these questions as quickly as I possibly can so that we can show you the instant quote.
I also wanted to point out while you're doing that, Vanessa, a few things of note, but we rate both entities or actual businesses, but we also rate individuals, which is great for independent contractors. So, you know, individuals that are hired by another company to provide a professional services generally are eligible for this type of program.
Thank you for that, Brian. I also want to point out that all of the questions that you plug into Appulate will get stored for easy remarketing and renewals for next year as well. All right, we've answered the last of our missing and required questions. We now have a green A and a green submit button that we can click on. As soon as we click submit, it's going to get to work and populate an instant quote for you.
So clearly you can see how quickly Vanessa was able to do that. It's not going to take you much more time to do that yourself. So it was really designed to speed this process up for you and put the control back in your hands in order to quote these accounts quickly. You also note that everything's a drop down. So from limit selection, you saw the class list. So it gives you just about all the information that you need in order to receive a quote. And if you don't know the type of professional service that your client actually is, and it doesn't fit one of the drop downs, there is an other option that you can select on, and then ultimately we would just ask you for a description of what they do.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. All right, so now we have our instant quote. We could go ahead and open that up here and take a quick look. I think Brian has a few pointers here on this proposal.
Yeah, so as you'll see, it looks like just about any other quote that you would receive for professional liability. It indicates the insurance company, Arch, at the top, the name of the insured. This is where you want to double check that you have your spelling correct for the name insured, because this ultimately is what's going to go on the policy. So this is your chance to kind of review this information and make sure that it's all correct, including their address. And then, of course, very importantly, the policy period effective date and expiration date, you want to review that. There's also the indication of a retroactive date. This is important for claims-made policies. This actually will continue to follow the risk for all years that they maintain coverage in force. So you want for a new entity that's never had coverage before, that date's always going to be the date of the first time they ever purchased coverage. So in this case, it would be March 12th, 2019. And if you have an account that currently has coverage and you're just looking for competitive options to replace it with, you'd want to insert that retroactive date from their current policy in the system so that that gets maintained. That's important. So it's a miscellaneous professional liability. The next information shows you the limit of liability, and as we scroll down, you'll see the deductible options that are available. In this case, we selected $1,000. Generally, most quotes will expire within 30 days of the date that you entered the information. And essentially, that's to ensure that if they haven't purchased coverage in that window of time, that we update the application, make sure that nothing's changed, and essentially we can refresh the quote. I could easily do that for you at your request too, if you have down the line offered a quote and they just didn't purchase it, but they're ready to move forward now. Here's a list of all the endorsements that will be attached to the quote as we scroll down. Copies of those endorsements are also attached. You'll see this is an excess and surplus line, so there is taxes involved. Depending upon the state, that information will be updated. You'll see the commission that we're paying is 12.5% in this particular case. And as we continue to scroll down, there's some additional information that may be required. This is where you'll notice that they're requiring that the Arch application, which as we had indicated, gets updated as you're completing the online quoter, or excuse me, online app. That'll just need to be signed off on. And then in addition to that, it's common practice for the carrier to want to see a copy of any engagement contract or engagement letter that the insurer typically uses when they work with a client of theirs. Another nice feature is that while you selected a 100,000 limit to see a quote for, here's where you're going to see every other available option up to $2 million and the corresponding premium along with that. So you won't have to keep going back and forth with an underwriter if they want to look at other options for different limits. Try to make it as simple for you as possible. So as we continue to scroll down here, This is where we get into the policy form. I'm not going to read this to you, but it's a great feature to have that right there for you so that you can review the coverage or ask questions of our team. The application, as we talked about, is completed. Here you'll see all the answers are answered. And then ultimately, this is the document that you would want to have the insured sign off on and upload into Appulate when you request to bind coverage. So very straightforward, and again, the remainder of the documents below, just information about the direct bill program. So as you have any questions regarding this, you can see what are the available options and how the process works. It's very simple.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so back into Appulate. You saw how easy it is to start an Appulate, answer a few questions, click the submit button, and get your instant quote for professional liability for Hull & Company Horsham. So if you would like to continue on and move forward to request to bind, you can do that very easily here in Appulate once you've gotten your quote, simply by clicking on this request to bind button. Let's actually back up here for just 1 second. Also, if you wanted to send the quote to your insured, you can do that through Appulate simply by clicking on this send by email icon. So go ahead, send it over to your insured for review. If you'd like to move forward, go ahead and click on the request to bind button here. Now, at this time, if you're not yet appointed with Hull & Company, it's going to take you through the automated appointment process. So as Brian mentioned earlier, you do not have to be appointed with Hull to get your instant quote. You can get your instant quote, and then if you decide to move forward and request to bind, at that time, it can take you through the appointment process. If you would like to become appointed with Hull & Company before submitting for a quote, that's not a problem at all. As Brian mentioned, feel free to reach out to him, or you can always go up here to the top of the markets list under selected. Once you choose Hull & Company Horsham, you can go to the appointment screen, and it's going to list the items needed for appointment, and you can always click on request appointment to generate that. So again, you can request an appointment at any time, but just know that you could get your instant quote back and then become appointed at the time when you request to bind. It's all built into Appulate. So once you do become appointed, you can go back into the insured file and continue on with the request to bind steps that will be outlined for you. You'll do that simply by clicking on the request to bind button again. So once you are appointed, you'll receive email notification, come back into Appulate, and continue on with the request to bind steps. Once it has been bound, you will be notified, and the status will change accordingly to bound in Appulate. All right, so now let's go into setup here quickly. I want to be sure that you all know how you can start using this today, and then we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. All right, so where you log in is appulate.com/sign-in. Everyone that was invited to this webinar already has Appulate credentials, so go ahead and type them in and get signed in to get started. If you do not remember your credentials, if you feel that you never got them, not a problem. Go ahead and click on the forgot password link here and go that route to reset your credentials. Once you're signed in, you'll want to make sure that under markets and selected, you see Hull & Company Horsham listed as one of your selected markets that you've chosen to work with in Appulate. If it's not on this list, you can simply add them by going to markets and available, searching for Hull, and clicking on the plus sign on the right-hand side here under select. If you are the account admin, you can add users to your Appulate account by going to setup and users, and you can add as many users as you need, as well as deactivate and edit user information. Okay, so very straightforward. If you are bridging over Accord Forms, you can go ahead and download the uplink under Tools and Appulate Uplink. If you already have completed Accord Forms, you can always start there. For additional information on the setup, you can always email support@appulate.com. So just one other slide to get through here on refer to underwriting response, and then we will go ahead and open it up for questions. Brian?
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on what are some common reasons why an account may be referred to underwriting. certainly the clearest one is when an account is too large. In this case, it has over $3 million in annual revenue, or they're looking for a limit that's higher than $2 million. Those are reasons why this would become ineligible, and I would go out to market and obtain quotes on your behalf with that information in mind. Also, if you want an optional admitted policy, certainly you can get a quote still for a non-admitted product through the system. Send me a note that you'd like it on an admitted paper. I'll get it revised and sent over to you quickly. It'll still be with Arch, assuming it's eligible for admitted on their side, and get the quote back to you. And again, if it's not eligible, I'll find admitted options for you. We have a host of markets that write on an admitted basis as well. And there are certain types of service providers that are listed here that are kind of common for those that are not eligible. Common one I get is, hey, can I write my own insurance agent's E&O through this platform? The answer is no, it's not eligible through this platform. I do have many markets that are interested in writing insurance agents E&O, so you could always just send that information to me directly. But these are kind of common areas for types of business professionals that aren't eligible for the online system. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so any questions we can answer? I'm going to actually take those, but I'm going to leave Brian's contact information up on the screen as we do that. So if you have any questions, now is the time, but also please jot down Brian's contact information. Okay, the very first question here, Brian, is how do you get appointed with Hull? So we show that it is a part of the request to bind process, but you can also log into Appulate, go to Markets and Selected, choose Hull, and there is an appointment tab with instructions there, or you can always contact Brian using the information up on my screen.
I'd comment too that process goes really quickly. Once you send the required information, we're back to you within just a few hours, worst case scenario within 24 hours, approving you, assigning you with a code for our system, and you're up and running.
Very good. The next question here, bear with me here. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so you said that we have credentials to sign up for Appulate, but I do not recall receiving any. How do I get signed up? Not a problem. So go ahead and go to the Forgot My Password link, and you can go ahead and reset your password there. If it doesn't recognize you, then perhaps you do not have an Appulate account. You can always go through the Sign Up Now steps. So there is a link there for you to sign up. If you have any issues, though, please contact support@appulate.com, and we'd be happy to help you get logged in. Can you email to yourself instead of the client? Yes, absolutely. If you click on the email icon for the quote, you can email yourself or the client. But actually just opening up the PDF will allow you to extract that and save it to your computer if you'd like. The next question here is about commissions. Brian, what are the commissions?
Yeah, so on this program, we're paying 12.5% commission. That's kind of our competitive base commission to our average users. We do offer incentives to high-performing producers that write a significant amount of this business. We would talk about that individually, but yeah, we pay a competitive commission. It's 12.5%. For this particular program.
Okay, very good. The next question for you, Brian, is how do I get the policy?
Yeah, so as soon as you've become appointed, you've requested to bind, we would bind the account in our system, immediately send you a binder. We actually get a policy at that point as well, as long as all the subjectivities have been met. And we will email you a copy of the policy directly. Also, you'll receive a copy of the invoice that the client will receive directly from the premium finance company for the direct bill option. So it happens pretty seamlessly. You don't have to chase it down. just as soon as you request it to bind, very quickly thereafter, you'll get a copy of the policy, assuming all subjectivities were met.
Very good, thank you. The next question here is actually about BOP. So today's demonstration was on professional liability, but as you know, or as Brian mentioned before, Hull & Company does other lines of business here in Appulate. So the question here is, how can I change my quote to a different package option? So let me show you that quickly. I'm going to go back into Appulate, back into the insured file. In fact, we'll go back to this ABC Consulting that we were working on. And I'm going to quickly add BOP to this. So we'll click on Create New here. I'm going to add in a business owner's policy and click the Continue button. And again, workflow is the same across all lines of business. So it takes me into the Q&A section where I'll have to choose Hull as my market. And then the questions that are missing and required will be listed here, and I'll go through the same process. But you'll notice a select package type. I think this is what the question was about. So you'll have to select one of these and then answer the questions and click the Submit button. But you may want to, once you receive the quote, change the package type. And you can absolutely do that. So once you receive the quote, if you wanted to come back and then change the package type, go ahead and do so, and it will recalculate. Brian, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just so you're aware what the three options are: silver, gold, platinum. This is written with Chubb Insurance Company, and they provide you with higher business personal property limits depending on the package, as well as some coverage enhancements that would correspond with the different package. And while we're talking about that subject, that this product is again designed for real small businesses. It's available in all states. It is admitted, and there's no territory restrictions because we're not insuring the building, just the contents. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you, Brian. All right, I think we did it. I think we answered all of the questions. So I'm just going to pull up Brian's contact information again one last time as we sign off here. On behalf of the entire Appulate team, I'd like to thank you all for your time today and joining our webinar. I hope it was helpful and informative. And Brian, thanks so much for joining and telling us more about Hull.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you everybody for joining us. Have fun quoting in the system.